Sometimes life doesn't shatter all at once. It breaks in silence, in the spaces between the words you never say, in the moments where you pretend to be okay, just long enough to convince the world you are. You smile, you nod, you show up. But deep down, a quiet voice whispers, "I can't keep doing this." The truth is, most people don't see the breaking point coming. It doesn't arrive with thunder. It slips in like a shadow, softly, patiently, until one day, everything you've been holding starts to slip through your fingers. You reach out to grab it, but there's nothing left to hold on to. That's when you realize strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence between two deep breaths when you're trying not to fall apart. You tell yourself, "I'm fine." You say it enough times that it starts to sound like truth even when you know it's not. You scroll through the world, see everyone moving, smiling, living, and wonder why you can't feel the same. But that's how breaking works. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, slow, and suffocating, until one day it's just too heavy to carry. That's when you stop pretending, and maybe that's where healing finally begins. Because before you can rebuild, you have to admit that something inside you broke. Depression doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like nothing at all, like waking up and feeling empty, even after 8 hours of sleep. It's the unread messages, the calls you don't return, the plans you cancel because you don't have the energy to explain what's wrong. The world tells you to stay positive, but how do you stay positive when you can't even feel anything? You sit in a room that once felt warm, now cold and unfamiliar. The silence feels heavy. You ask yourself, why can't I just feel normal again? What no one tells you is that numbness is also pain. It's the body's last defense when everything becomes too much. It's not weakness. It's your mind begging for rest. You're not broken because you can't smile today. You're tired because you've been strong for too long. There's a certain beauty in that silence. Not the kind that feels good, but the kind that tells you something inside you still wants to live. The first tear you let fall after days of emotional drought isn't defeat, it's release. It's your soul whispering, "I'm still here." Everyone has a breaking point, a moment where you think, maybe it would just be easier if I stopped trying. That's not madness. It's exhaustion. You've been fighting invisible battles in your head and no one noticed. You've been smiling through pain because you didn't want to burden anyone. But you see, the urge to give up doesn't mean you want to die. It means you want the pain to stop. It means you're desperate for peace, and that's the most human thing in the world. You reach that edge where you can't cry anymore. Your body's trembling, your thoughts are spinning, and you think, this is it. But something strange happens in that silence. The same place that feels like your ending begins to hum with something else. A small, faint spark that says, not yet. It's not loud, but it's there. Even when you hate yourself for still hoping, a part of you refuses to let go. That's not weakness. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot, that you've made it through every bad day before this one. Even in your darkest hour, there's a voice whispering, get up, just one more time. It's not always inspiring. Sometimes it's desperate, but it's real. It's the part of you that knows pain isn't the end of your story. You listen reluctantly. You take one small breath, then another. And even though nothing around you has changed, something inside you has. You've decided not to give up. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to move. Healing doesn't begin with strength. It begins with listening to that whisper that says, keep going. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation. The place where you finally stop pretending and start rebuilding. It doesn't happen in a day. It's slow. It's messy. It's you making a cup of coffee even when you don't want to taste it. It's you opening the curtains just enough to let the light in. It's you deciding that maybe you'll call someone today, not because you feel better, but because you want to. Healing doesn't happen when the pain disappears. It happens when you choose to stand in the pain and build anyway. You whisper to yourself, I don't know how to fix this, but maybe I can start small. That's it. That's the first step. No grand transformation, no fireworks, just a quiet decision to begin again. Every small act becomes a brick in your rebuilding. Every breath you take without giving up becomes proof that you're still here. And slowly, piece by piece, the ruins become something new. Not what they once were, but something stronger. Healing doesn't look powerful. It looks peaceful. It's sitting in stillness and realizing you don't have to run anymore. It's breathing deeply without forcing yourself to smile. It's the quiet understanding that maybe peace isn't something you chase. It's something you allow. When you stop fighting your pain, you start to hear what it's been trying to say all along. Control was never the goal, surrender was. And the moment you stop resisting, your storm begins to calm. The chaos doesn't vanish, it softens. You start to feel safe in your own silence. You don't find strength, you remember it. You start to see how far you've come, not how far you have to go. You stop searching for who you used to be and start honoring who you are becoming. You look back at the person who once thought they'd never make it, and you realize, you did. You survived every moment that told you it was impossible. Maybe that's enough for today. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to keep showing up. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're just in the middle of becoming. The pain you carry isn't a sign of weakness. It's proof that you cared deeply, that you tried, that you're alive. If you're hearing this right now, it means you're still here, and that means there's more to your story. One day this pain will make sense. One day you'll look back and realize it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something greater. So before you give up, take one more breath. Because maybe, just maybe, you're closer to peace than you think. And if this spoke to you, share it with someone who's standing where you once stood. Remind them that their story isn't over yet. Sometimes the smallest act of hope saves a life. Depression doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like nothing at all. It's waking up and feeling like the world has been drained of color. It's sitting in a room that used to feel warm and familiar, now covered in a strange stillness. You look around and see the same walls, the same light filtering through the blinds, but everything feels distant, almost like you're watching your life from behind glass. People call, messages appear, notifications blink, and you stare at them, unable to move. You want to reply, you really do, but your fingers feel heavy, your thoughts too tangled. So you let the messages pile up, convincing yourself you'll answer later, even though you know you won't. There's this strange quiet that fills your chest. Not peace, emptiness. It's not the kind of quiet that soothes you. It's the kind that drowns you slowly. You watch the world move on, people laughing, working, chasing dreams, and you wonder how they do it. How do they keep going when you can barely get out of bed? How do they smile when everything inside you feels hollow? You start to question yourself. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I don't deserve to be happy. But that's the thing about depression. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just sits with you in silence, whispering lies so quietly that you start to believe them. You tell yourself, it's just a bad day. You say that every day, but the days start blending together until you can't tell where one ends and another begins. You stop keeping track. You stop caring. You eat just enough to function, sleep just enough to survive. You scroll mindlessly, searching for something, a distraction, a spark, anything that reminds you that you're still alive. But all you find are pieces of other people's happiness, flashing like cruel reminders of everything you've lost. And then, that question comes, why can't I just feel normal again? You say it out loud this time, half expecting an answer, half knowing there isn't one. The echo in your room is your only reply. You press your palms against your eyes, trying to stop the noise in your head, but the silence is louder than ever. You can't explain it to anyone, not really. How do you describe feeling nothing? How do you tell someone that your heart is beating but you can't feel it? People around you mean well. They tell you to cheer up, go outside, be grateful. But gratitude feels foreign when you can't even feel your own heartbeat. You want to tell them it's not about gratitude, it's about exhaustion. You're not sad because life is bad. You're sad because you're tired, tired of pretending, tired of hoping, tired of fighting a battle you can't see. You start to withdraw, not because you don't care about others, but because it hurts too much to keep disappointing them. You cancel plans, ignore calls, stop showing up. You tell yourself they're better off without you for a while. But deep down, you're just afraid they'll see through the mask, that they'll see how empty you really feel. And so the silence grows, but here's what no one tells you. Numbness is not weakness. It's not proof that you're broken. It's your mind begging for rest after carrying too much for too long. You haven't stopped feeling because you're heartless. You've stopped feeling because your soul is trying to protect itself. When you've been running through storms for years, sometimes your heart forces you to pause, not because it's giving up, but because it needs to breathe. The day you finally sit still, truly still, something changes. Not outside, but within. You notice the sound of your own breathing. You notice the weight of the blanket, the hum of the refrigerator, the way light hits the wall. The world hasn't changed. You have. For the first time, You're not trying to escape it. You're just there, present, quiet. It feels uncomfortable at first, too real, too raw. But then something small happens. A tear slips down your cheek. One single drop after days, maybe weeks, of emotional drought. And that one tear says everything your voice couldn't. That tear isn't weakness. It's release. It's your body whispering, I still care. I still feel. I still exist. In that moment, you realize that even emptiness has meaning. Silence doesn't mean absence. It means recovery. It means your soul is finally making space for peace to return. You sit there a little longer, breathing softly, feeling the weight of the world still on your shoulders, but lighter now, somehow. You're not better. You're not fixed. But for the first time in a long time, you're here. Alive. A little cracked, but still here. And maybe that's enough for today, because healing doesn't begin with loud breakthroughs or sudden joy. It begins with a single tear in a quiet room, a reminder that even in the emptiness, there's still life waiting to be felt again. Everyone has a breaking point. Not everyone survives it the same way. For some, it comes suddenly like a violent crash after holding everything in for too long. For others, it creeps in quietly, one disappointment at a time, one sleepless night after another, until the mind finally whispers, I can't do this anymore. You don't plan to fall apart. It just happens. One day you're holding yourself together with invisible thread, convincing the world you're fine, and the next, that thread snaps. It starts as panic, the kind that makes your chest tighten, your breathing shallow, your hands tremble for no reason. You try to calm yourself, deep breaths, distractions, anything. But the storm only grows louder inside your head. The thoughts come faster now, tangled and merciless. Why even try? What's the point? You want to scream, but your voice gets lost somewhere between your lungs and your throat. The world feels too bright, too loud, too heavy. You stare at the floor and think, maybe it'd be easier if I just stopped trying. It's terrifying how convincing that thought can sound when you're tired enough. You start imagining what it would feel like to stop, to disappear from the noise, the pressure, the endless cycle of trying and failing. But beneath the thought, there's something else, a quiet kind of fear. Because deep down, you don't really want to die. You just want the pain to stop. You want silence, not an ending. Peace, not oblivion. That's the thing about breaking points. They don't always look like chaos from the outside. Sometimes they look like someone sitting perfectly still, staring at nothing, while their mind is screaming for help. Sometimes they look like a smile forced for one last day, because you don't want to worry anyone. Sometimes they look like you, just trying to make it through the next hour. The flashbacks come uninvited. You remember every time you thought you were fine, every time you told yourself it's not that bad. The late nights pretending to be strong, the mornings pretending to be okay. You see flashes of the moments that built this, the rejections, the losses, the words that still echo. And as the memories pile up, the present starts to blur. You're not here anymore. You're everywhere your pain once lived. The mind becomes your enemy then. It starts bargaining with you, twisting reason into poison. You've tried everything. You're just not built for this. People get tired of fighting. The voice doesn't sound cruel. It sounds gentle, almost kind. It tells you what you want to hear, that you can rest, that no one will blame you, that it's okay to stop. It sounds like mercy, but it's not. It's exhaustion wearing a disguise. The chaos inside feels unbearable. Heart racing, palms cold, tears you didn't even know were falling. You want to run, but there's nowhere to go. You want to call someone, but you don't know what to say. So you sit there in the dark, your body frozen, your thoughts spinning like a hurricane. Time loses meaning. Minutes, hours, they all blend together. And in the middle of it, something inside you breaks. Not like glass shattering, but like a dam giving way. Everything you've held in, the fear, the anger, the disappointment, it all rushes out, drowning you in your own silence. And then, nothing. Just stillness, the kind that feels both empty and infinite. You stop fighting, you stop running, you just exist, and for a moment you think this is the end. But then, a breath, small, shaky, but real. The air feels heavy as it enters your lungs, but it's there. You're still here. Something deep inside refuses to let go, even when everything else has collapsed. That breath becomes a whisper. Maybe I don't want it to end like this. It's faint, almost drowned by the noise, but it's enough. You realize that the urge to give up wasn't about weakness. It was about wanting peace. You weren't trying to die. You were trying to be free from the weight. The breaking point, it turns out, isn't your destruction. It's your body's desperate attempt to save you. It's your soul's way of saying, enough pretending. It's time to start over. In that fragile moment, between breaking and breathing, you understand something no one ever taught you. You can fall apart and still survive. The collapse doesn't mean the end of your story. It means your old self has finally surrendered, making room for something new to emerge. You don't know what comes next, but for the first time, the idea of next feels possible. You wipe your face, realizing you've been crying without knowing when you started. The room is still dark, your life still messy, your problems still real. But there's a flicker of light now. Not from outside, but somewhere within you. Small, unsteady, but undeniably alive. That's the paradox of breaking. It feels like death, but it's often the beginning of rebirth. The old strength you built on survival collapses, and in its place, something more honest begins to form. Not the version of you that pretended to be okay, but the one who's finally ready to be real. And as you take another slow breath, the thought returns. Maybe it'd be easier if I just stopped trying. But this time it sounds different, because now you're not thinking of giving up on life. You're thinking of giving up the fight against yourself, and that quietly is where healing begins. Even when everything falls apart, when the room feels colder than usual and the silence hums louder than your heartbeat, there's a voice. You don't notice it at first. It hides beneath the noise, buried under the weight of exhaustion and the ache in your chest. But it's there, faint, fragile, yet unbroken. It whispers, "Not yet." You've lost count of the nights that bled into mornings, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this endless loop will ever end. The world outside moves on, unaware that inside you're fighting a war no one can see. The mirror shows the same face, but something in the eyes has dimmed, not empty, just tired. You've given so much of yourself to survive that even breathing feels like a burden. And still, somehow, that quiet voice keeps finding its way through the cracks in your thoughts. Get up, just one more time. You don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's instinct. Or maybe it's the part of your soul that refuses to accept that this is all there is. It doesn't sound like motivation or positivity. It sounds like truth. It's not shouting at you to be strong. It's simply reminding you that you still exist, that the smallest spark of life inside you is still burning. Even if it's buried under ashes, in the depths of despair, this whisper becomes the only thing that feels real. When your body feels heavy and your thoughts blur into static, it cuts through, not with force, but with presence. You can almost feel it in your chest, a pulse that says stay, just for a little longer. You argue with it, of course. You tell it you're done, that you've tried, that you're tired of fighting battles you can't win. But the voice doesn't argue back. It just waits, patient, kind, steady, and somewhere between tears and silence, you start listening. Not to the pain, not to the chaos of your thoughts, but to that stillness beneath it all. It doesn't promise miracles. It doesn't erase your past. It simply gives you permission to try again. Not for anyone else, not for some distant dream, but for yourself. For the part of you that still wants to see what happens next. You sit up slowly, like your body has forgotten how to move. The floor feels cold beneath your feet, but real, tangible. You take a breath, shallow but certain, and it hits you. You're still here. You made it through every moment you thought you couldn't. Maybe not gracefully, maybe not easily, but you made it. That realization doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, like dawn seeping through the cracks of a broken night. Get up. Just one more time. You hear it again, clearer now. Not as a demand, but as an invitation. You stand unsteady, your body trembling under the weight of your own resurrection. There's no applause, no music, just the sound of your breath, proof that you are still alive. The pain hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer the only thing you can feel. Beneath it, there's a hum of something else. Defiance, maybe. Or hope. Every step feels heavier than it should, but you take it anyway. You've learned that strength isn't loud. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes strength is nothing more than showing up for one more sunrise, one more heartbeat, one more chance. You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here. As you stand in the half-light of morning, something in you shifts. The voice that once felt distant now feels familiar, like an old friend who never left, even when you stopped believing they existed. It's not telling you to forget your pain. It's reminding you that it's part of you, not the end of you. Every scar, every sleepless night, every tear, all of it has built the person standing here now. Broken, yes, but not gone. There's a strange peace in realizing that survival doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to know what comes next. You just need to keep answering that voice, the one that keeps whispering, "Not yet." Because one day those words won't sound like struggle anymore. They'll sound like strength, and as the light grows brighter, you take another breath. It's not easy. It's not painless. But it's yours. You are standing again, shaky, trembling, but alive. And in that fragile moment, you understand what the voice truly meant all along. It wasn't telling you to keep fighting forever. It was telling you to trust that one day the fight will turn into freedom. You glance out the window, watching the world wake up. For the first time in a long time, you don't feel like an outsider looking in. You feel part of something unfinished, something still becoming. The voice grows quieter now, not because it's gone, but because you no longer need it to be loud. You whisper back, "I'm here." And for the first time, you believe it. Even when everything falls apart, when the room feels colder than usual, and the silence hums louder than your heartbeat, there's a voice. You don't notice it at first. It hides beneath the noise, buried under the weight of exhaustion and the ache in your chest. But it's there, faint, fragile, yet unbroken. It whispers, "Not yet." You've lost count of the nights that bled into mornings, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this endless loop will ever end. The world outside moves on, unaware that inside you're fighting a war no one can see. The mirror shows the same face, but something in the eyes has dimmed, not empty, just tired. You've given so much of yourself to survive that even breathing feels like a burden. And still, somehow, that quiet voice keeps finding its way through the cracks in your thoughts. Get up, just one more time. You don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's instinct, or maybe it's the part of your soul that refuses to accept that this is all there is. It doesn't sound like motivation or positivity. It sounds like truth. It's not shouting at you to be strong. It's simply reminding you that you still exist, that the smallest spark of life inside you is still burning. Even if it's buried under ashes, in the depths of despair, this whisper becomes the only thing that feels real. When your body feels heavy and your thoughts blur into static, it cuts through, not with force, but with presence. You can almost feel it in your chest, a pulse that says stay, just for a little longer. You argue with it, of course. You tell it you're done, that you've tried, that you're tired of fighting battles you can't win. But the voice doesn't argue back. It just waits, patient, kind, steady, and somewhere between tears and silence, you start listening. Not to the pain, not to the chaos of your thoughts, but to that stillness beneath it all. It doesn't promise miracles. It doesn't erase your past. It simply gives you permission to try again, not for anyone else, not for some distant dream, but for yourself, for the part of you that still wants to see what happens next. You sit up slowly, like your body has forgotten how to move. The floor feels cold beneath your feet, but real, tangible. You take a breath, shallow but certain, and it hits you. You're still here. You made it through every moment you thought you couldn't. Maybe not gracefully, maybe not easily, but you made it. That realization doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, like dawn seeping through the cracks of a broken night. Get up. Just one more time. You hear it again, clearer now. Not as a demand, but as an invitation. You stand unsteady, your body trembling under the weight of your own resurrection. There's no applause, no music, just the sound of your breath, proof that you are still alive. The pain hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer the only thing you can feel. Beneath it, there's a hum of something else. Defiance, maybe. Or hope. Every step feels heavier than it should, but you take it anyway. You've learned that strength isn't loud. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes strength is nothing more than showing up for one more sunrise, one more heartbeat, one more chance. You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here. As you stand in the half-light of morning, something in you shifts. The voice that once felt distant now feels familiar, like an old friend who never left, even when you stopped believing they existed. It's not telling you to forget your pain. It's reminding you that it's part of you, not the end of you. Every scar, every sleepless night, every tear, all of it has built the person standing here now. Broken, yes, but not gone. There's a strange peace in realizing that survival doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to know what comes next. You just need to keep answering that voice, the one that keeps whispering, "Not yet." Because one day those words won't sound like struggle anymore. They'll sound like strength, and as the light grows brighter, you take another breath. It's not easy. It's not painless. But it's yours. You are standing again, shaky, trembling, but alive. And in that fragile moment, you understand what the voice truly meant all along. It wasn't telling you to keep fighting forever. It was telling you to trust that one day the fight will turn into freedom. You glance out the window, watching the world wake up. For the first time in a long time, you don't feel like an outsider looking in. You feel part of something unfinished, something still becoming. The voice grows quieter now, not because it's gone, but because you no longer need it to be loud. You whisper back, "I'm here." And for the first time, you believe it. Healing doesn't look powerful, it looks peaceful. Not the kind of peace you see in glossy magazine covers or cinematic endings, but the quiet, fragile kind that settles inside you after the storm has passed. It's the moment when the noise in your head finally softens, when you realize you don't have to fight every thought that comes your way. You just breathe. For so long, life felt like a race, rushing to fix, to prove, to become. You believed healing would feel like triumph, like fireworks in your chest, but instead it's silence. It's stillness. It's sipping your morning coffee without the weight of yesterday's fears pressing on your heart. It's noticing sunlight filtering through the blinds and realizing, for the first time in forever, you're not bracing for something to go wrong. The world hasn't changed, but your relationship with it has. You've stopped running. You've stopped trying to control every outcome, every feeling, every crack in your soul. You're learning that peace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. The surrender to what is, rather than what could have been. You sit outside one morning, the air crisp, the sky painted in muted blues and soft golds. For once, you don't feel the need to fill the silence with music or distraction. You just listen, to the wind, to the birds, to the rhythm of your own heartbeat. That heartbeat, once frantic and uneven, now feels steady, familiar, home. Maybe peace isn't something you chase. You whisper to yourself. The words hang in the air like a revelation. It's something you allow. There's no sudden epiphany, no cinematic transformation, just a slow unfolding, like dawn breaking across the horizon. You begin to understand that life isn't about constantly striving to feel good. It's about learning to be okay with what is. The ache, the joy, the in-between. All of it belongs. All of it matters. Sometimes, when you close your eyes, you still hear echoes of old pain, regrets, what-ifs, memories that used to burn. But now they feel different, softer. You don't push them away. You acknowledge them, thank them, and let them go. That's the gift of healing, not erasing the past, but releasing its hold. A mentor once told you, peace isn't the absence of storms. It's learning to stand still in the rain. You didn't understand it then, but now sitting in the quiet hum of morning, you do. Life will still bring chaos, heartbreak, uncertainty, but you've discovered a stillness that can't be taken from you, an inner space untouched by the world's noise. Breathing becomes your anchor. Not shallow gasps to survive, but deep, intentional breaths that remind you, you're alive, you're safe, you're here. Each inhale feels like permission to begin again. Each exhale, a gentle release of all that no longer serves you. You walk through familiar streets and notice things you never used to see, the way sunlight hits the leaves, the laughter of strangers, the small kindnesses that keep the world from falling apart. You start to feel grateful, not because everything's perfect, but because you finally see the beauty in imperfection. The voice inside your head, once cruel and relentless, now sounds different, kinder, quieter. It doesn't demand perfection anymore. It reminds you to rest, to eat, to smile, to breathe. You realize that this voice, the one that once whispered, "Not yet," when you were at your lowest, was never something outside of you. It was you all along, the part that refused to stop believing in your return. As days pass, you build a new rhythm. Not the old rush of survival, but the steady pace of presence. You no longer measure your worth by productivity or comparison. You've learned that existing, fully, consciously, gently, is enough. And that realization brings a peace deeper than any victory ever could. One evening, As the sun dips below the horizon, you stand by your window and watch the sky shift from gold to violet. The light feels different now, not distant but connected. You take a slow breath, and for the first time in years, it doesn't hurt. There's no heaviness pressing against your chest, no fear waiting in the silence. Just breath, just life, just you. You smile faintly and whisper, "I made it through." The words are soft, but they carry the weight of every battle you've fought. You don't need to scream them. Peace doesn't shout, it hums. It radiates quietly through every part of you that once trembled. And as you exhale, you realize this is what healing really means. Not erasing pain, but learning to live with it, to find stillness in its aftermath. You've learned to breathe again, to feel again, to trust again. And in that simple, sacred act of being here now, you've finally come home to yourself. You don't find strength. You remember it. It was never gone, only buried beneath the weight of everything you thought you couldn't survive. For the longest time, life felt like a test you were failing, a storm that refused to pass. But now, standing here, not at the end, but somewhere new, you begin to see the truth. You were never broken beyond repair. You were rebuilding in disguise. There's something quiet about survival that no one talks about. It's not loud or heroic. It's not a movie montage or a grand speech. It's waking up one morning and realizing the pain isn't the first thing you feel anymore. It's the soft laughter that surprises you mid-conversation. It's looking at your reflection and not seeing someone damaged, but someone becoming. You walk through the same streets that once felt suffocating, and everything looks different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. The noise of doubt has softened, replaced by something steadier, something real. You can breathe here. You can live here. I made it, you whisper one morning, watching sunlight spill through your window. And maybe that's enough. For so long, enough felt like a word meant for other people. People who seemed to have it all together, who smiled without pretending. But now you see it differently. Enough isn't about having everything. It's about being here, about choosing to stay even when leaving felt easier. Enough is this moment, your heart still beating, your soul still reaching, your story still unfolding. The scars that once embarrassed you now feel like proof. They don't tell a story of weakness. They tell a story of endurance. They remind you that you've lived, fully, painfully, beautifully. You used to hide them, thinking they made you less. But now you see them as a map. Each mark a place you refuse to give up. There are days when old fears try to return, whispering the same lies they always did. You'll never be enough. You'll never escape. But you recognize them now, not as truth, but as echoes. And instead of fighting them, you smile gently and say, "I've heard this story before, and I know how it ends." Because you do. It ends with you standing up again. It ends with you trying again. It ends with you remembering who you are. Not the person you were before the pain, but the person you became because of it. There's a new rhythm to your life now. It's slower but steadier. You don't chase peace anymore. You build it one day at a time. You say yes to small joys, a walk in the rain, a song that hits too deep, the warmth of someone's hand who doesn't ask you to explain yourself. You start to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You begin to understand that happiness isn't a destination. It's a decision, a quiet, deliberate choice to find light even when it flickers. You stop searching for the old you because you finally see you outgrew who you were. The old version of you fought to survive. The new one learns to live, and slowly life begins to bloom again. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You find purpose in helping others who feel like you once did, lost, tired, ready to give up. You don't give them advice. You give them presence. Because you remember how it felt to just need someone to stay. When you look around now, you see people, all carrying invisible battles, all trying to hold on to something. And in their eyes, you recognize pieces of yourself. It humbles you. It softens you. You realize that maybe strength isn't about never breaking. Maybe it's about breaking open so the light can finally get in. You start to thank the moments that once crushed you. Not because they were fair, but because they taught you who you are. You're no longer searching for a reason for your pain. You're living its purpose. The version of you that once begged for peace now creates it. And as you stand in that moment, maybe on a quiet morning, maybe beneath a sky painted in gold, you feel it. Gratitude. Not the kind you force, but the kind that arrives unannounced, like a sigh of relief. You made it through the nights that were meant to end you. You made it through the thoughts that told you you couldn't. You made it through yourself. Life isn't fixed. It never will be, but it's worth living again. The cracks remain, but they shine now, filled with gold. Proof of healing, proof of strength, proof of becoming. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be here. So you take a deep breath, the kind that feels like the first one all over again, and smile. Not because everything is okay, but because you are, and maybe, just maybe, that's where every new beginning truly starts. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're just in the middle of becoming, even if the nights have been long and the silence overwhelming. The fact that you're hearing these words means something. It means you've survived this far, and survival is proof of a resilience you may not yet see. If you're hearing this, take a moment to notice your breath. The very act of breathing is a signal that your story is still unfolding. The heaviness in your chest, the thoughts that whirl without rest, the moments you wanted to disappear, they are all part of the same thread that's weaving you into someone stronger. Wiser and more compassionate than you were yesterday, pain connects us all. You might feel alone, like no one understands the weight you carry. But in truth, every struggle, every silent tear, every sleepless night belongs to a shared human experience. Somewhere, someone else is walking a path that mirrors yours. You are never truly alone. Your story is part of a vast, invisible network of hearts beating through hardship, hearts learning to beat again. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to question everything. That does not mean you are failing. That means you are human. Every step you've taken, even the ones that felt small or futile, has brought you to this moment. A moment where choice begins to whisper again. You can choose to stand. You can choose to keep moving, even if the next step is unseen. Imagine the light breaking slowly at dawn, spilling warmth over the darkness. That light exists inside you. It has always existed. The storms you've endured have not destroyed it. They have tempered it. You are like steel forged in fire, stronger, flexible, capable of holding more than you ever imagined. Remember, growth is rarely linear. There will be days when doubt returns, when fear clouds your vision, when the past seems too heavy to leave behind. These moments are part of becoming, part of the intricate tapestry of life. They do not define your end. They are simply the contrast that makes your emergence brighter, clearer, more profound. So, take another breath. Feel your heart. Notice the small victories, waking up, asking for help, choosing to keep going. Each of these is a rebellion against the darkness, a testament to your courage. Even the quietest choices carry immense power. Even the unseen steps forward matter. If you are standing on the edge, unsure whether to hold on, remember this. You are not defined by the weight you carry, but by the resilience with which you carry it. You are not alone. You are becoming. Every moment, every struggle, every tear has meaning. It is shaping you into someone who can survive and even thrive. Your story is far from over. It's unfolding with each heartbeat, each breath, each choice to rise again. Hold on to that truth. Let it seep into every corner of your mind and soul. Your presence matters. Your life matters. Your becoming matters. And if this touches you, reach out. Share this message with someone who feels like they're at the end. Remind them, gently, firmly, lovingly, that they are still here, still breathing, still becoming. That is reason enough to stay. That is reason enough to hope. That is reason enough to live.